The girl stands at the doorway, nervous and flushed, trying to gather courage. She clenches her fists, looking determined. The boy greets her teasingly, pointing out her lateness. She panics, waving her hands in denial. He responds, still teasing. The boy moves closer, teasing her about being used to this. She blushes, feeling embarrassed. The girl stands in a pose, embarrassed but determined. The boy starts sketching. The boy focuses on his drawing while the girl tries to hold her pose. Close-up of the boy's lips as he concentrates on sketching. The focus shifts to her legs as she tries to stay still, looking awkward. The girl looks down, clearly frustrated and blushing, trying to stay composed. She stands awkwardly in a pose, arm up, visibly uncomfortable. She asks if they can do something else because it's embarrassing. The boy responds casually. The boy questions her embarrassment, mentioning she looks beautiful and shouldn't feel awkward. He continues teasing, asking her to give him a show. She blushes deeply, thinking he's shameless. The girl introduces herself as Megumi Arashi, a high school student, explaining how she's ended up being this guy's model every day for 2 weeks. She describes Seishi Eda, the art club member who's been drawing her repeatedly, and his passion for art. Close-up of Seishi's hand as he draws, focused on his work. Seishi holds up a measuring tool, concentrating as Megumi holds her pose, looking slightly annoyed. Megumi watches him work, feeling the intensity of his focus as he continues sketching. Megumi reflects that even though she's done this a dozen times, it still feels weird to her. Megumi breathes heavily, feeling overwhelmed as Seishi continues sketching. The intensity of the moment makes her uneasy. Her face flushes deeply, a mix of embarrassment and tension. She struggles to maintain her composure as Seishi works. Megumi thinks to herself that if this continues, she's going to lose control. Her discomfort is palpable. She suddenly locks eyes with Seishi. He looks focused, unaware of how much this is affecting her. She becomes even more flustered. Megumi feels a sense of panic rising. Seishi's intense gaze on her, magnified by his glasses, is too much for her to handle. Megumi screams, telling Seishi not to look at her. Her outburst surprises him, and he falls back in shock. Megumi apologizes awkwardly, feeling guilty for her sudden reaction. Seishi, holding his head, asks what that was all about. Seishi sits across from her, explaining that he needs to look at her if she's going to model for him. Megumi, embarrassed, complains that he's staring too much. Seishi apologizes, admitting he was lost in thought. Megumi reluctantly accepts as long as he doesn't overdo it. Seishi explains that her neck was just too beautiful, which made him lose focus. Megumi, shocked and blushing, shouts in disbelief at his honesty. Megumi breathes heavily, feeling overwhelmed as Seishi continues sketching. The intensity of the moment makes her uneasy. Her face flushes deeply, a mix of embarrassment and tension. She struggles to maintain her composure as Seishi works. Megumi thinks to herself that if this continues, she's going to lose control. Her discomfort is palpable. She suddenly locks eyes with Seishi. He looks focused, unaware of how much this is affecting her. She becomes even more flustered. Megumi feels a sense of panic rising. Seishi's intense gaze on her, magnified by his glasses, is too much for her to handle. Megumi screams, telling Seishi not to look at her. Her outburst surprises him, and he falls back in shock. Megumi apologizes awkwardly, feeling guilty for her sudden reaction. Seishi, holding his head, asks what that was all about. Seishi sits across from her, explaining that he needs to look at her if she's going to model for him. Megumi, embarrassed, complains that he's staring too much. Seishi apologizes, admitting he was lost in thought. Megumi reluctantly accepts, as long as he doesn't overdo it. Seishi explains that her neck was just too beautiful, which made him lose focus. Megumi, shocked and blushing, shouts in disbelief at his honesty. Seishi is talking passionately about Megumi's neck, comparing it to elegant art, while Megumi gets flustered and overwhelmed by his enthusiasm. She tries to cut him off, clearly embarrassed. Megumi, visibly annoyed, thinks about how ridiculous Seishi is being. He, however, seems completely oblivious to her irritation, continuing to gush over her appearance while she demands he just gets back to drawing. Megumi struggles internally, telling herself not to think about what's happening. She tries her best to block out the awkwardness of Seishi drawing her. With her eyes closed, Megumi keeps repeating to herself to clear her mind, trying to distract herself from the uncomfortable situation. As Megumi tries to keep her composure, Seishi nonchalantly informs her that he's almost done with her neck and will soon start on her chest. Megumi shouts at him in frustration, telling him not to say such things out loud. Megumi, clearly irritated, tells Seishi to focus on his sketch instead of talking. He looks confused, mentioning that he is focused, hinting that perhaps it's Megumi who's having trouble staying calm. In her frustration, Megumi simply shouts at him to shut up. Megumi reflects on the situation, feeling a mix of confusion and vulnerability. She wonders if Seishi is just messing around with her, feeling foolish for letting her guard down. Megumi questions Seishi's intentions, if he really wants to draw her or if it's just an excuse to flirt. She thinks about the other pretty girls in the school, and why someone like her, with her bleached hair and piercings, would be his choice. Megumi's expression becomes one of frustration as she concludes that the thought of Seishi choosing her is actually making her quite mad. Seishi keeps sketching while Megumi looks a bit confused by his dedication. Seishi is focused, his hand moving quickly across the paper. Seishi's intense gaze is on Megumi, making her blush. Megumi seems to be surprised, trying to understand why she feels this way. Seishi finishes drawing and thanks Megumi, saying it's a good place to stop for now. Seishi asks Megumi if he can ask her something. Megumi asks why Seishi chose her as a model, looking a bit self-conscious. Seishi just smiles, giving a vague answer which makes Megumi visibly frustrated. Seishi explains how many artists focused on one person, saying he felt something similar when he saw Megumi. Megumi realizes his feelings, still unsure but touched by his words. Megumi seems lost in her thoughts, her eyes half closed as she mutters to herself, trying to convince herself that everything is fine. Seishi ruins the mood with an awkward joke about artists and muses. Megumi is visibly annoyed, her frustration evident as she clenches her teeth. Megumi looks at herself in the mirror, reflecting on what just happened. She seems contemplative, a bit unsure, perhaps processing her emotions. Megumi's thoughts are in turmoil as she recalls Seishi's words. His comments keep replaying in her mind, causing her to feel conflicted. Megumi decides to wear her hair in a ponytail the next day, rationalizing her choice by blaming the hot weather. But deep down she knows it might be more about Seishi's earlier remarks. Megumi is packing up her things, a shy smile forming as she watches her classmates leave the room. Saori catches her as she's about to leave, enthusiastically inviting Megumi out for karaoke, but Megumi is visibly flustered and declines. Saori teases Megumi, hinting that maybe she's found a boyfriend, which makes Megumi blush furiously as she denies it, but her nervousness makes her seem suspicious. Not wanting to explain herself, Megumi hurriedly leaves the classroom. Saori watches her run away, surprised but amused. Megumi, now alone outside the art room, struggles internally. She wants to explain things to Saori, but just can't bring herself to do it. Megumi barges back into the art room, grabbing Seishi in frustration. She's flustered, and Seishi winces in pain. The situation is just too awkward to explain properly. Megumi's eyes narrow in pure frustration as Seishi looks back, confused. Annoyed, Megumi demands to know what Seishi was even thinking with that ridiculous pose. Seishi just wants her to look at something. Seishi shows Megumi a famous artwork, Gustav Klimt's Danae. He explains he wanted to do an homage to it, using Megumi as his model. Megumi's face flushes red, horrified at the realization. She refuses, pointing out the nudity. Seishi clarifies he only wanted her to copy the pose, but Megumi is not convinced. Seishi admires a painting, looking excited. He says he loves it and wonders what it would look like with Megumi in the center of it. Megumi looks at Seishi, not quite sure what to say. She's clearly puzzled by his enthusiasm. Megumi awkwardly tries to copy the pose from the painting. She's sitting on the floor with one leg raised, her face showing discomfort. Megumi seems uncomfortable. Seishi gives a thumbs up, saying, "That's great." Megumi just sighs in annoyance. Megumi's thoughts reveal she's skeptical of Seishi's intentions. She believes he just wants to peek at her, and she seems irritated. Seishi, however, looks entirely serious, his eyes wide in concentration as if he's truly focused on the artwork. Megumi, seeing Seishi's focus, realizes he might not be thinking anything weird after all. She sighs, saying, "Okay, maybe not." Megumi looks resigned, listening to Seishi explain that Danae is a figure from Greek mythology. Seishi continues, talking about Danae and Zeus. He mentions their son, and Megumi looks unimpressed, seemingly unfamiliar with the story. Seishi goes on to say that Klimt's painting symbolizes how Zeus and Danae were involved. Megumi is left confused, questioning what he's implying. Megumi looks confused as the guy explains how the golden cloth between her legs symbolizes Zeus in Klimt's painting. Megumi's face turns bright red as she realizes the implication. She processes the information and is visibly embarrassed. Megumi, completely flustered, shouts at him, asking what kind of ridiculous pose he made her do. The guy seems puzzled, wondering if his explanation didn't work to make Megumi comfortable. Megumi, fed up, declares she's taking a break. Megumi sits down, visibly frustrated, as she thinks about how uncomfortable the whole situation is. Megumi, hugging her knees, wishes the guy would show a little more shame while he continues drawing without much thought. Megumi asks Zeus, the metaphorical golden cloth, to keep her covered, hoping the guy isn't seeing anything inappropriate. Despite her embarrassment, Megumi is worried about how much of her body is visible, even if he's focused on drawing. Megumi is trying hard not to think about what's happening, but she knows the guy is closely studying her thighs for his drawing. Megumi is visibly embarrassed, her thoughts repeating how weird and awkward the situation is while she blushes deeply. Megumi looks flustered as she sits awkwardly, and her friend calls out to her. Her eyes widen, surprised by his shout. Megumi seems confused as her friend tries to regain his composure. He apologizes for spacing out, and Megumi reassures him, trying to act casual, though it's clear they're both a bit embarrassed. Megumi sits with her legs still up, looking a little more uncomfortable. Her friend awkwardly continues with his sketch, mentioning Zeus, referencing their earlier conversation. It's clear both are still tense. Megumi's eyes shift nervously, and we see her sitting there, waiting. He's still sketching her as if nothing is wrong. The awkwardness is almost palpable between them. Finally, Megumi can't hold it in anymore and yells in frustration. The scene ends with her outburst echoing outside the building as it zooms out. To be continued teases the next chapter. Megumi Arashi, also known as the Great Bear of the West, stands fiercely in front of a bear, exuding confidence. She has an unmatched reputation as a legendary delinquent, one whose fighting skills strike fear into the boys of Ukuma. It's said that very few can face her and leave unscathed. In a classroom, a group of students talks about Megumi. One of them remarks that she's got all the local high schools under her control, making her quite well known around the area. The students are awestruck by her reputation. One of the boys comments on Megumi's intimidating aura. The others agree. They remember the piercing look in her eyes. It's enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Seishi, a student in the group, reflects on Megumi's fearsome reputation. He mentions how the glint in her eyes is like that of a true warrior. He shudders, knowing that those who provoke her rarely escape without consequences. Suddenly, Megumi herself appears. The students are taken aback. She stands tall, holding some papers. Her long hair flowing behind her makes her look even more intimidating. Everyone seems to tense up immediately. Megumi turns her sharp gaze to the group and says, "Hey, you guys!" The students freeze in place. Her presence alone commands their full attention, and they're clearly nervous. The students can't take it anymore. Without waiting for further clarification, they shout out apologies and flee the scene in a panic. Megumi, slightly confused, watches them bolt as she tries to ask for something, but it's too late. Megumi holds a form in her hand, looking a bit puzzled. It's a job-seeking form and she seems unsure how to proceed with collecting them. She mutters, "Wait, but the students are already long gone." Left alone in the hallway, Megumi looks annoyed and a little tired. She's near the art room, clearly feeling frustrated at how things have unfolded. Inside the art room, Seishi continues working on his sketches. He sighs while Megumi explains what happened with a resigned expression. He responds that it indeed sounds like a tough situation, acknowledging her struggle. Megumi reflects on how poorly her day has gone, admitting she couldn't even collect all the printouts her teacher asked for. She feels it's been a disaster, especially learning how much her peers fear her. Seishi comments on how she seems like quite the legendary figure, which surprises her. She insists the rumors are exaggerated. She's not that strong and hasn't done anything that extreme, not controlling schools or anything. A bird's-eye view of the classroom shows Megumi sitting at her desk while Seishi is focused on his easel, drawing quietly. Megumi reminisces about the past, a smile appearing on her face. Something about this setting brings back memories, making her feel nostalgic. Megumi mentally describes her love for one-on-one fights. For her, it's like entering another dimension, just for herself and her opponent, the purest way to determine who's stronger. Megumi remembers the thrill of a fight, the intensity of locking eyes with her opponent, exchanging blows until one person is left standing. The memory makes her smile with determination. Megumi, still deep in thought, remarks how just thinking about fights sends a shiver down her spine. In the background, Seishi keeps sketching her intently. Seishi continues drawing while Megumi sits across from him, seemingly lost in her thoughts as they share a quiet moment together in the classroom. Suddenly, Megumi exclaims with excitement that their current situation is just like a one-on-one fight. Seishi, clearly startled, seems unsure of what she's getting at. Seishi, looking a bit confused and serious, listens to Megumi. She thinks she has figured it out. He's locking eyes with her, ready to battle. This misunderstanding leaves her fired up, despite Seishi's non-intentional seriousness. Megumi's eyes are filled with determination as she shouts, "Bring it on!" Seishi comments that Megumi's expression looks a bit too stiff, catching her off guard. Megumi regains her composure, smirking as she compliments Seishi for not backing down easily. Seishi thinks to himself, convinced Megumi will eventually back down as he continues sketching. Megumi's legs tense up in nervousness as she lets out a soft gasp. She remembers all the tough fights she's been in, boasting about facing down many scary opponents. Megumi struggles against Seishi's intimidating stare, feeling strangely weak under his gaze. Seishi is calmly sketching, unaware of Megumi's inner struggle as she tries to counter his gaze. Megumi, determined, convinces herself she can withstand Seishi's attacks. Seishi tells her he knows she likes fighting, which catches Megumi off guard, making her stammer in response. Seishi advises Megumi not to overdo things, and she isn't happy about him telling her what to do. Megumi looks annoyed and asks, confused, what Seishi means by that. Seishi earnestly tells Megumi that he wouldn't forgive her if anything bad happened to her. Megumi looks taken aback by his sincerity. Megumi realizes she misinterpreted his intentions, blushing slightly at the seriousness in Seishi's tone. He adds that he wouldn't be able to keep drawing if something happened to her. On her way home, Megumi reflects on their fight and realizes how badly she misunderstood the situation. She's embarrassed, the thought of it all causing her to blush again. The birth of the modest Venus. Megumi, feeling even more embarrassed, stands in front of some rather dramatic artwork, caught in her awkwardness. In the art room, one of the other students seems to be snoozing, while others continue sketching. Megumi talks about how weird it feels to be the one doing the drawing this time. She's actually pretty good and wants everyone to know it. One of the students jokes about how their friend goes to an art school where they sketch real models, making the rest jealous. Megumi hears about the nude modeling part and goes quiet, deep in thought, looking a bit Megumi is lost in thought while Ida continues drawing in the background. Megumi feels frustrated, thinking about how people her age are already drawing nude models. She imagines Ida might also think about drawing nude models. Ida notices Megumi's unease and asks if something is wrong. Megumi stammers, denying anything's bothering her. Ida notices Megumi's unease and asks if something is wrong. Megumi stammers, denying anything's bothering her. Megumi relaxes in a hot bath, enjoying the warmth, but she can't stop thinking about the nude modeling. Her thoughts are filled with nudes as she sinks deeper into the bath. She suddenly panics, imagining that Ida might try to get her to strip for art too. In her imagination, she sees a devilish version of Ida, talking about how it's for the sake of his art. Megumi questions him and Ida confirms it, saying, obviously. Determined, she swears she won't let that happen, thinking she's not that type of person. She vows that if Ida even mentions nudes, she'll punch him. She's pumped up, covering herself with bubbles, ready for a fight. Megumi awkwardly asks Ida if he's ever thought about nude models. Ida questions why she brought that up and casually compliments her skin. Megumi yells for him to shut up. Ida admits he'd like to sketch a nude model. Megumi accuses him of being perverted. Ida calmly says it would be a good experience for his art. Megumi panics at his phrasing. Megumi insists she's not stripping for him, and Ida clarifies he never planned to ask her. Ida shows Megumi his sketchbook, and she gets curious about what he's trying to explain. Megumi is shocked to see nude sketches of herself in his sketchbook. Megumi freaks out, questioning why he drew them. Ida simply says he wanted to draw nudes. Ida explains he can draw her from imagination because he knows her so well. Megumi is horrified by this. Megumi is shocked and annoyed, giving Ida a sharp look. He seems confused, not understanding what he did wrong. Ida comments about the sketches, mentioning something awkward about Megumi. She responds instantly with a slap to his face. Megumi is fuming. She calls Ida a stealth pervert while snatching the sketches away from him. Megumi looks at the sketches and blushes, mumbling about something being inaccurate. She seems embarrassed. Ida leans in curiously, wondering aloud what he might have gotten wrong in his drawings. Megumi turns away, clearly embarrassed, telling Ida to shut up. The scene ends with her frustration still palpable. Ida shows Megumi an art book. It's a famous nude painting, and he asks if she's seen it before. Megumi questions why most of the nudes are of women, clearly irritated. She wants to see more balance. Ida explains that the female body represents universal beauty in art, which many artists prefer to use. Megumi isn't really convinced, but she sighs and seems to let it go for now. Ida confidently claims that nude drawings are popular because they're sexy, and that men throughout history have always loved seeing women in the nude. He's trying to sound intellectual, but Megumi knows his true thoughts. Ida keeps going, discussing shunga artists and the erotic history of Japanese art, even as Megumi gets more flustered. She interrupts, telling him to just stop talking before she explodes. Ida casually asks what Megumi thinks of the next painting, continuing as if his monologue hadn't been interrupted. Megumi looks at the drawing, her eyes skeptical. Megumi glances at the artwork, her face puzzled. She doesn't know how to respond, her thoughts trailing off. Megumi overanalyzes the painting. She feels self-conscious, thinking about her own body, imagining Ida would want her to pose like that. It's clear she's feeling uneasy about how much she's overthinking things. Megumi panics, blurting out that she wasn't thinking of anything specific. Ida looks on, confused, suggesting that maybe she doesn't need to take it that seriously. Megumi nervously laughs it off, but Ida comments that he knew she'd think that. He points out that the back really does stand out in the painting, only making Megumi more uncomfortable. Ida mentions how distorted the body proportions are, and Megumi agrees after a closer look. Ida goes into an analysis about how the figure is twisted in an impossible way. Megumi questions if Ada thinks the painting is bad, and Ada is quick to clarify. He explains that it's deliberately distorted, showcasing the artist's unique ideal of beauty. Ada muses that the artist must have had a back fetish, showing an exaggerated, humorous mental image of the artist obsessing over women's backs. Megumi is left unimpressed, finding his explanation a bit too simplistic. Ada is impressed by the artist's determination to express himself, even in an era when people expected accuracy in art. She comments on the criticism he faced because of his unique approach. Ida wonders aloud, how are you planning to find your own ideal of beauty today? She's genuinely curious about his next move. The artist smirks, stating that he's planning to draw a picture that expresses his fetishes. Ida looks puzzled, repeating, fetishes? The artist sets up his easel, telling Ida to pose naturally, just like she normally does. She hesitates for a second, but agrees with a nervous, okay. Ida sits down with the drawing pad, deep in thought. Ida's fetishes? She wonders, still trying to figure out where this is going. Time passes, and Ida lays down, staring at the ceiling while the artist sketches away. She feels awkward, waiting for whatever comes next. Ida looks at the artist, observing him fully focused on the drawing. She wonders what his next move might be. Ida realizes that he's focusing on drawing the areas that he finds the most attractive, just like the artwork they'd talked about earlier. The artist's focus is intense. Ida can't help but think, I wonder which part he'll pick. Ida strikes a casual pose, but starts thinking, maybe it's my legs, or my butt. She's unsure, but hopes she's doing it right as the artist's pencil keeps scratching away. Ida decides to wrap up the art session, telling Megumi that they'll stop for now. He seems satisfied but doesn't reveal much. Megumi is visibly drained, crawling on the floor. When Ada asks if she's okay, she tries to play it off, insisting she's completely fine, though clearly exhausted. Megumi sits down, hugging her knees. She thinks about how tense she got during the session, wondering where exactly Ida was looking. She admits to herself, "Geez, I'm so tired." Ada starts cleaning up, announcing that it's time to put everything away. Megumi watches him quietly, still recovering from the intense session. Megumi stands in a daze, looking at Eda as he continues cleaning. She feels a mix of confusion and curiosity, wondering what exactly he captured on the canvas. Eda notices Megumi staring at him and asks, "Huh?" Megumi snaps out of her thoughts, looking away awkwardly. Megumi finally speaks up, asking Eda what part of her he focused on in the drawing. Eda seems unsure, saying it doesn't look much different from normal. Ida pauses for a moment, not answering directly. Megumi looks at him, waiting for an explanation. Megumi is anxious, wondering what Eda's silence means. She questions, "Did he fail?" as she tries to read his expression. Megumi tries to comfort Eda, telling him not to feel too down about it. Eda explains that it's not really a failure. He did a lot of thinking during the process, implying it was more of an experiment or learning experience. Eda confesses to Megumi, "I like drawing you exactly as you are, Senpai." Megumi seems taken aback by this unexpected honesty. Megumi is clearly embarrassed as Eda apologizes, "I'm sorry I had you pose for so long." She tries to dismiss it, insisting, "Oh, no, it's fine." But she's visibly flustered by the situation. Megumi looks lost in thought, still trying to make sense of what just happened. She looks over at Ada, seated at the easel, her expression unreadable. Megumi, sitting with a defeated expression, murmurs, "Yeah, maybe that's it." She thinks that Ida drew her legs a bit plumper than reality, and it's hinted that she's still trying to find out Ida's hidden fetishism. A new character appears. She's applying makeup at her desk, seemingly carefree. A little note on the side suggests that they're catching up with the magazine releases. Megumi walks up to the girl, sternly telling her, "Stop putting on your makeup in the classroom. It's rude." The girl seems unbothered and playfully teases, "Hey, don't be so uptight." The girl excitedly shows Megumi a makeup magazine she recently bought. "There were some super great tips in this magazine I bought yesterday. I've just got to try them." She seems enthusiastic, contrasting Megumi's indifferent stance. The makeup enthusiast tries to coax Megumi into trying the makeup too, saying, "You've got to look good for your boyfriend." Megumi, blushing furiously, retorts, "I told you I've not got a boyfriend." The class gets ready to start, and the teacher calls for everyone to take their seats. The girl still insists, "Try them! I'll lend you the mag." Megumi just seems overwhelmed by her friend's persistence. Megumi is sitting down, tying her hair up. She's deep in thought, contemplating the idea of makeup. The text says, "A secret garden into which men dare not tread." It appears Megumi is stepping into a space that she's not too comfortable with, influenced by her friend. Megumi stares at Ida, shocked by his statement. He tells her that he likes drawing her just as she is, without emphasizing anything in particular. Megumi's eyes widen in response. Ida apologizes for making Megumi pose for so long, saying he should have realized sooner how simple it was. Megumi awkwardly tries to dismiss his apology, blushing and not sure how to react. Megumi looks puzzled as she sits by the canvas, her expression filled with mixed feelings. It's clear she's still processing Ida's earlier confession. Megumi seems slightly embarrassed but accepts it. She reflects on Ida's drawing, noticing that he might have drawn her legs a bit plumper. The text hints at Megumi continuing to search for Ida's unconscious fetish. The scene changes to Sayori in a classroom, happily applying her makeup. The chapter seems to be catching up with magazine releases. Megumi approaches Saori, annoyed by her behavior. She tells her to stop putting on makeup in the classroom, calling it rude. Saori dismisses Megumi's comment, telling her not to be uptight. Saori holds up a magazine, excited about some makeup tips she found in it. She insists that Megumi should try them, pointing out that they were ultra cute. Saori teases Megumi about looking good for her boyfriend, much to Megumi's irritation. Megumi, embarrassed, insists that she doesn't have a boyfriend. As the teacher walks in, Saori offers to lend Megumi the magazine, encouraging her to try the makeup tips. Megumi seems hesitant but doesn't outright refuse. The scene ends with Megumi alone in an art room, seemingly contemplating Saori's words. Ada is staring at Megumi while she nervously starts applying makeup. Megumi feels awkward under his intense gaze, pointing it out. Megumi sighs, clearly finding Ida's behavior a bit much. Ida suggests a lighter shade for the foundation, thinking it would suit her better. Ada critiques Megumi's makeup application, pointing out unevenness and thickness. Megumi snaps, telling Ida to do it himself if he's so good at it. Ada takes over and starts applying makeup on Megumi. Megumi sits there, flustered as Ida applies makeup on her face. Megumi wonders why Ida is so interested in makeup. He calls it an art form. Ida continues applying makeup, focused on getting it just right. Megumi thinks about how he only ever thinks about art. Ida's concentration is intense as he uses Megumi's face like a canvas, carefully painting on her. Megumi blushes as she realizes how focused he is. Megumi feels vulnerable as Ida's touch is much gentler than before. The sensation feels different, almost intimate. Ida's focused gaze, intense and unwavering. Megumi notices his fingertips on her chin. His touch is surprisingly gentle, making her nervous. Megumi is getting more flustered as Ida continues his work, his close proximity making her feel more conscious. Ida finishes and proudly remarks about his work. Megumi is exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. Megumi takes a mirror and glances at the result, feeling too drained to care much. She looks in the mirror, stunned. Her face is drawn with dramatic exaggerated features like Frida Kahlo's. Ida cheerfully comments it's his take on Frida Kahlo, admiring the individuality of the look. Ida grabs a camera to take a picture, happily saying it's one of his best works while Megumi is left speechless. Megumi is furious, yelling at Ida about messing with her face. Ida tries to justify himself, insisting he wasn't just fooling around. The guy gets punched hard, his face twisting from the impact. Others getting taken down as one person curses under their breath, clearly frustrated. She stands there confidently, looking like a total menace. Someone calls her a monster. She smirks, assuring the guy that he'll join his friends soon, intimidating him even more. She follows up with a chilling "in hell" and moves to finish the fight. The guy is knocked out, collapsing on the floor in defeat. The girl triumphantly announces their victory, raising her fist. Behind her, others cheer while some lay defeated. At the changing rooms, the girl unbuttons her shirt, smiling and clearly in a good mood. She talks about enjoying the workout while her friend complains about hating gym class. The two continue their banter. The friend grumbles about the cold while the girl insists that working up a sweat is the best way to stay warm. Megumi's surprised expression as she accidentally sprays herself with deodorant. She's confused. Megumi asks Saori if she has any deodorant in her bag. Saori nonchalantly says she didn't bring any since she wasn't trying hard in gym. Megumi sniffs herself, contemplating. Saori comments that it's fine as long as no one gets too close. Megumi still seems unsure. Ida is in the art room, stretching dramatically, clearly preparing for something. Ida is seen trying different poses, some very exaggerated, like standing upside down on a chair. He's determined. Megumi enters, catching Ida in the middle of his bizarre stretching. She questions what he's doing now. Ida mentions he's trying to come up with poses for Megumi, suggesting more active ones. Megumi looks skeptical. Ida is enthusiastic about the idea of active poses, but Megumi isn't too keen on it. Ida starts explaining about Delacroix, getting really into it while Megumi interrupts, tired of his lecture, agreeing to do the poses. Megumi, slightly embarrassed, asks what Ida wants her to do, reluctantly preparing for whatever he has in mind. Megumi and Ida are discussing what poses she should try. He asks her to do something more active. Megumi has an idea and announces it confidently, looking determined. Megumi does a high kick, aiming to show off her active pose. Ida seems impressed but startled. Ida offers a suggestion, asking her to lower her upper body a bit to improve the pose. Megumi seems flustered by his critique. Ida gets too close while adjusting Megumi's pose. She looks embarrassed, telling him not to come too close. Ida focuses on fixing Megumi's posture, moving her arms slightly. Megumi worries a little about whether he might notice her sweating. Megumi tells herself it's all fine, trying to stay composed as she keeps her focus on maintaining the pose. Megumi's eye twitches slightly, hinting at her growing nervousness as Ida continues adjusting her stance. Megumi's thoughts spiral. She's overthinking Ida's actions. She questions if he's doing something strange, but dismisses it as her imagination. Megumi is freaked out, realizing that Ida is actually sniffing her sweat. She feels embarrassed and furious at the same time. Ida is completely focused, sniffing intently without any awareness of Megumi's discomfort. Megumi's face flushes red in disbelief. She can't understand why Ida would do something so ridiculous, and it frustrates her even more. Ida suddenly turns away, apologizing in a flustered manner. He seems to have just realized how awkward the situation is, leaving Megumi stunned. Megumi watches in confusion as Ida moves away, trying to explain himself despite his heavy breathing, which only adds to the awkwardness. Megumi's eyes widen, her face turning even redder as she pieces together what just happened, feeling a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. Ida, visibly flustered, covers his face, fighting his own emotions. The atmosphere gets even more uncomfortable. Trying to play it cool, Ida makes an awkward excuse, claiming he caught a cold. He even tells Megumi to take care, though it's clearly hard to believe. Megumi is still covering her face, trying to regain her composure. Ida suggests they get back to posing, acting as if nothing happened. Megumi has had enough. She storms off, clearly done with the entire situation while Ida is left standing there, confused about what went wrong. Ida enters the art room, ready to get started on something important. Megumi is already there, sitting casually with a drink, giving him a slight nod. Ida looks a little surprised that she's so early. Ida suggests getting to work, but Megumi abruptly stands up, interrupting him mid-sentence, catching him a bit off guard. Ida seems confused as Megumi turns away from him, sitting quietly, murmuring something to herself. He can't quite tell what's going on. Megumi's thoughts are revealed. She's determined to take control this time, not let Ida run the session his way. She's got a plan. Megumi vents out her frustration, complaining about being put in so many embarrassing situations by Ida. She's clearly had enough. Ida calls out to Megumi, asking if she can hear him, looking concerned about her reaction. Megumi stays silent, sitting on her stool, with Ida looking puzzled by her sudden change in attitude. With a confident smirk, Megumi decides she's going to make Eda understand what it's like to be the one treated carelessly. Today, she's not giving in easily. Eda is reading a book, while Megumi, with a determined expression, tells him he should treat his model better, no matter what artistic ideals he thinks he's following. Megumi looks determined, telling Eda he won't find anyone else to model if he keeps acting like this. Eda focuses on his drawing while Megumi stands there, speechless. Megumi asks what exactly he's drawing. Eda simply tells her not to move. Eda glances at Megumi, noticing something about her looks especially good today, which catches her by surprise. He comments about a strange, defiant aura coming from her. Megumi awkwardly accepts the compliment. Megumi blushes, processing what Eda said, feeling a bit flustered. Megumi is visibly frustrated. Things aren't going the way she wanted at all. Eda stays focused, unfazed. Megumi thinks about how hard it is to get to him, deciding to step up her game. Megumi tries to shake things off, stretching, but admits she's struggling to get into it. Eda tells her not to move, getting irritated. Megumi just snaps back, "Shut up!" Megumi is clearly annoyed, telling Eda she's not into it. She wants him to stop only thinking about himself. Eda apologizes, realizing his mistake. He admits he should be more considerate of Megumi when she's modeling for him. Eda explains that he assumed Megumi was in the mood to model since she showed up early. Megumi's embarrassed, and her body language is giving her away. Megumi tries to deny it, but she's clearly flustered. Eda teases her about not having anything else to do today, and she struggles to argue back. Eda gets more serious. He talks about how their understanding of each other impacts his sketching, and that they should try to work better together. Megumi admits she was being selfish and apologizes again, looking a bit guilty. Eda accepts her apology, and Megumi admits she didn't pay enough attention to him either. They both seem to reach an understanding. Eda, in a cheerful mood, says he'll be watching her even more closely from now on, making Megumi a bit speechless. Megumi's face looks a bit lost. She's unsure about Eda's sudden enthusiasm. Eda gets into his artistic spirit, mumbling about needing to form a deeper bond like the artists of the past. Megumi is starting to think things are getting a bit weird. Megumi sighs in resignation, admitting they should just carry on like they used to. She seems frustrated, dropping her head slightly. Megumi, looking determined but slightly annoyed, mutters that changing Eda is impossible. Eda stands behind her, quiet. Megumi forces a laugh, trying to brush off the tension. She claims she just got overly excited, but her expression says otherwise. Eda smiles, trying to encourage Megumi. He says she's always finding new ways to excite him, and that if they work together, they'll create even better art. Megumi looks taken aback by his enthusiasm. Megumi blushes a little, sighing and saying, "Well, if I must." She seems slightly flustered by Eda's unexpected praise. Eda announces he needs a break. Megumi responds reluctantly, saying it's fine, but she still seems frustrated that they haven't really started. Megumi gets annoyed, accusing Eda of lacking common sense. She tries to deny that she's acting strange today, but it's clear she's a little rattled by the situation. A close-up of the sketchbook flipping as Eda's pencil sketches come to life. A detailed sketch of Megumi appears on the sketchbook. She looks graceful and calm, quite different from her usual demeanor. The drawing of Megumi stares out from the page, serene and composed. A caption hints at the potential drama ahead, leaving an intriguing open end for the next chapter. Megumi is getting cornered by her friend, who's eager to meet Megumi's boyfriend. Megumi, looking tired of this routine, denies having a boyfriend once again. Her friend teases Megumi, implying she's inexperienced with boys, relationships, or anything romantic. Megumi looks utterly offended by the suggestion. Megumi tries to protest, claiming she knows quite a bit about guys. Her friend's expression remains skeptical, prompting Megumi to explain more. Megumi blurts out she even knows about their bodies. Her friend's face turns to shock, imagining where this conversation might lead. Megumi starts describing various features, like their abs and biceps. Her friend listens, flabbergasted, as Megumi delves deeper into what she apparently knows. Trying to play it cool, Megumi insists that she knows all about them. The frame then shows her imagining herself punching several guys, proud of her experience. Her friend looks even more confused, realizing Megumi's idea is totally different from what she meant. The scene cuts to Eda's hands working with clay. It seems he's trying something different this time, but his approach seems rather casual. Megumi curiously leans over Eda's shoulder, noticing him working with clay. She questions his choice, and Eda responds nonchalantly about wanting to try something new. Eda gestures towards a statue nearby. He tells Megumi that his goal today is to sculpt it in clay, showcasing his new creative process. Megumi looks at the statue and can't help but comment on its good muscles. Eda, completely serious, takes her words as praise for his observational skills. Megumi smiles, amused by Eda's misunderstanding. Megumi looks at her overly muscular statue, acknowledging that maybe she went a bit overboard. She sighs, accepting it as her style. She's proud of her work, smiling confidently, convinced it's a masterpiece. Megumi's eyes widen as she notices her statue looks nothing like the original, realizing she might have messed up. Despite realizing her mistake, she decides not to give up, looking determined. Megumi tries to fix the sculpture, working with focus and determination, though struggling visibly. She ends up frustrated, shouting in exasperation while Ida watches confusedly. Megumi looks overwhelmed and embarrassed, feeling like she's out of her depth with the sculpture. Ida asks if she's okay, but Megumi brushes it off nervously, feeling the statue is staring her down. Suddenly, she gets an idea, imagining the statue as Ida to make it less embarrassing. Megumi continues sculpting, feeling more comfortable now, smiling as she holds the figure. Megumi is sculpting and asks if she's doing it right, trying to match the posture of the statue. Megumi suddenly looks shocked, realizing something isn't right. Frustrated, she decides to just go with whatever comes to mind, angrily slapping a piece of clay. She finishes with an exasperated shout, catching Ida's attention. Ida glances at what Megumi made. It's a bit questionable, featuring a goofy inflatable elephant for emphasis. Megumi stares, completely unamused by the outcome. Ida casually comments, poking fun at her sculpting interests, making Megumi even more embarrassed. Megumi gets irritated at Ida's teasing, yelling back defensively. Meanwhile, Ida keeps himself busy, working on his own project silently. Megumi is concerned, thinking about keeping her secret from Sayori regarding her help with Ada. Megumi is annoyed at Eda's request, feeling distracted. She's frustrated, thinking Eda doesn't understand her struggles. A sudden close-up of Megumi's intense eyes as something has captured her attention. Megumi sees a face on a screen with someone shouting her name. It's definitely startled her. Saori is smirking, Ida's focused on sketching, and Megumi looks annoyed. It's a tense moment. Saori teases Megumi about being Ida's personal model, hinting at their closeness. Saori introduces herself to Eda, asking if he's a first-year student. Eda responds with his name. Saori compliments Ida's drawing skills, while Megumi feels flustered and embarrassed by the situation. Saori continues teasing, calling Eda Megumi's toy boy. Megumi is extremely embarrassed, wanting to escape the situation. Megumi lies back, admitting to herself that she doesn't really like modeling for Ida. Saori overhears and questions her honesty. Saori grins, suggesting that Ida should draw both her and Megumi together. Megumi is shocked at the bold request. Saori teases Megumi further, who's still stunned by the whole idea. Megumi tries to push back, saying it's not a good idea. Saori playfully asks if Megumi would share her boy, causing Megumi to feel flustered. Ida starts imagining all the poses the two girls could do. Megumi realizes he's totally on board with the idea. Saori and Megumi lie on the bed in a suggestive pose. Saori asks if their positioning is okay, and Ida, clearly invested, confirms it looks great. Saori reveals her idea to imitate a famous piece of art depicting two women together, explaining her inspiration. Megumi finds it a strange subject. Saori continues, talking about how groundbreaking the original painting was. Megumi is intrigued, but still seems embarrassed. Saori cuddles close to Megumi, asking if her leg is uncomfortable. Megumi insists she's fine, clearly feeling a bit awkward. Saori starts teasing Megumi again, stroking her leg and asking if she gets excited when Ida draws her. Megumi nervously denies it, clearly embarrassed by Saori's antics. Megumi is getting flustered as Saori teases her. Saori leans in, making things more awkward for Megumi. Saori continues to push her buttons, whispering teasing comments. Megumi is visibly uncomfortable, but can't deny some truth in her words. Saori laughs, clearly enjoying Megumi's reaction, while Megumi struggles to defend herself. Both of them are on the ground, sharing a moment of laughter. Megumi protesting, Saori just playfully teasing. The room zooms out, showing Ida sitting at his easel, focused on sketching them both. The exhaustion is setting in. Both Saori and Megumi express how staying still for this long is no joke. Saori shares a heartfelt moment with Megumi, talking about how happy she is to spend time with her today. Megumi looks a bit surprised but relieved, glad to hear Saori was worried about her. Eda casually apologizes for not informing them earlier about the plan, while Saori bluntly calls him out for the idiot move. Megumi looks a bit confused, trying to understand where this is going. Saori leans in with a playful smirk, getting close to Megumi's face. "Let's be even closer friends from now on," she says teasingly, her face puckered up. Megumi is stunned, her expression full of confusion. Saori suddenly gets even closer, almost pressing against Megumi. Megumi yells out, "Wait! What the hell are you doing?" The scene shifts to Eda, who's still sketching them with focused intent. Saori suddenly plants a smooch, making Megumi shout, "Oi! Stop drawing!" After that, Saori started dropping by the art club from time to time. Eda is still in the art room, concentrating on his easel. It's quiet, save for the sound of his pencil on the canvas. Megumi bursts into the room, visibly flustered. "Senpai, what are you doing over there?" she demands, clearly struggling with her emotions. Ida looks up, seemingly caught in the act. Megumi, attempting to regain her composure, asks, "Why didn't you just come into the room?" Ida looks embarrassed as he tries to respond. Ida looks puzzled and asks, "Senpai?" Megumi, visibly awkward, tries to cover up her feelings with a nervous chuckle. Megumi is in the shower, the water cascading down as she takes a moment for herself. She looks deep in thought. Megumi steps out, feeling refreshed after the shower. There's a sense of relief and comfort as she dries herself off. Noticing the bathroom scale, she decides to check her weight, mentioning she hasn't done it for a while. Megumi steps onto the scale, looking a bit curious about what it'll show. Her eyes widen slightly in anticipation. She looks down at the reading and her whole body tenses up. Something about the result clearly takes her by surprise. Megumi's expression turns into disbelief. She can't believe what she's seeing, as if the numbers can't possibly be right. In a bit of a panic, she begins to inspect herself, grabbing at her skin. The tension and disbelief are apparent on her face. Megumi sits, looking worried, clearly overthinking what the scale showed. Ida appears in the background, probably unaware of her distress. Megumi stares down at herself, feeling a bit self-conscious. She doesn't want Ida to see her like this, her mind racing for a solution. Ida asks her if she's worried about gaining weight. Megumi's face freezes, completely stunned that he caught on so easily. Megumi is in shock, exclaiming that it's obvious she's gained weight. Eda admits that it's clear just by looking. Megumi is feeling down, convinced that she's become a fatty. Ida tries to reassure her, though his phrasing doesn't help much. Ida points something out to Megumi. She's confused, giving him an annoyed look as she questions him. Ida shows Megumi an artwork of Venus at the Mirror by Peter Paul Rubens. Megumi looks at the painting, seemingly unsure why he's showing her this. Megumi, with a deadpan expression, asks if Ida is asking for a punch. He quickly denies that, trying to explain himself. Ida gives a short art history lesson about Venus being a symbol of beauty. Megumi listens but doesn't look too impressed. Megumi is unimpressed, calling artists a bunch of fetishists. She looks at notes mentioning backs, muscles, and weight, her skepticism growing. Ida confidently declares that Megumi is his Venus. He sees beauty and even slight changes in her appearance. Megumi is taken aback, flustered by his words. Eda suggests that Megumi could aim for around 100 kilograms, saying it could be interesting. Megumi looks horrified, questioning what he's trying to do to her. Ida continues, admitting his interest is in Megumi herself. He wouldn't mind if she gained weight, claiming he'd understand the appeal just as Rubens did. Megumi is in disbelief, calling him an idiot. Megumi, looking a bit annoyed, walks down the hallway with a snack in hand. She mumbles to herself about how confusing Ida can be sometimes. She seems frustrated, recalling Ida's strange antics. She can't quite figure him out, shaking her head slightly. Ida's words echo in her mind. "You are my Venus, Senpai." Megumi's expression is a mix of irritation and disbelief. Megumi stands by the door labeled Art Room with a determined look on her face. She's decided that a bit of a fight can be good sometimes. She's ready to confront whatever's in the art room. Pushing the door open, Megumi enters and announces her arrival, calling out to Eda. Megumi sees a girl sitting confidently in the art room while Eda continues drawing. The girl seems comfortable, and Megumi pauses, startled by this unexpected presence. Megumi's eyes widen as she tries to process what she's seeing. It's almost like she's in shock. Megumi and the new girl face each other. The atmosphere is tense, and Megumi feels her identity being challenged by this new presence. There's a silent showdown between them. Ida, oblivious to the tension, continues drawing. It seems he's completely focused on his artwork, unaware of the confrontation happening behind him. The new girl smirks confidently. She's definitely up to something, and her eyes show a hint of mischief. Megumi's eyes widen in surprise, sweat forming on her face. Something feels off about this situation. The girl shouts Megumi's name with so much energy that it startles Megumi. She jumps, clearly caught off guard. The mysterious girl clings to Megumi, cheerfully exclaiming how she's happy to meet her. Megumi, looking utterly confused, demands to know who this girl is. Ida seems annoyed as he scolds the girl for moving while he was sketching her. She quickly apologizes, attempting to return to her position. Megumi internally questions the sanity of this new girl as she complains about her leg cramping up. Megumi looks absolutely exhausted with the situation already. The girl introduces herself proudly, striking a confident pose. She's Kirishima, the art club president, and apparently a third-year student. Megumi introduces herself in return, somewhat hesitantly, while Kirishima squeezes her hand enthusiastically. Her energy is a bit overwhelming. Kirishima, now more relaxed, notices the club members and mentions how she didn't know there were others apart from Ida. Ida points out that she's rarely ever there herself. Kirishima compliments Ida's drawing skills, saying he's improved a lot. Ida, in his usual reserved demeanor, thanks her without much fuss. Megumi gives Ida a skeptical look. She acknowledges his improvement in drawing compared to their last encounter, remarking about the time back in April. Her expression seems a bit unimpressed. Ida confidently responds that his skills have gotten much better and adds it's thanks to Kirishima's help. Megumi looks confused, a small "huh?" escaping her lips, clearly caught off guard by this sudden attribution. Kirishima smirks, teasingly saying how a good model and a good artist always bring out the best in each other. She claims that must be what happened between Megumi and Ida, her smile showing she's having fun with this. Megumi looks annoyed and whispers under her breath, questioning if this is really their first time meeting Kirishima. She seems uneasy and a bit unsure about the situation. Eda turns towards his easel, asking Megumi to wait for a bit while he finishes his sketch. Megumi agrees, albeit reluctantly. Kirishima, meanwhile, seems to be enjoying how things are playing out, with a smug grin on her face. Kirishima moves to the side, her expression now looking sly and calculating. Ida continues sketching, the sound of his pencil filling the otherwise silent room. Megumi, standing by herself, simply watches. Her blank stare shows she's not too sure what's happening between Ida and Kirishima, or where she fits into all of this. Megumi observes Kirishima, noting that despite her earlier loud and assertive demeanor, she looks surprisingly striking and calm when sitting quietly. Megumi looks intrigued by this unexpected side of Kirishima. Ida is humming happily as he works on his sketch, completely immersed in what he's doing. He looks content, enjoying the process of capturing Kirishima's presence on paper. Megumi comments how Ida seems to be having a good time sketching, her tone almost questioning. Ida, still focused on his work, responds, "I am? So?" clearly oblivious to any deeper meaning in her words. Ada is drawing at his easel while Megumi stands nearby, looking a little bored. She comments how it's been a long time since she drew anyone other than him, and Ada looks slightly confused. Megumi watches Ida work, thinking he should broaden his subjects and practice drawing other things. Despite that, she just shrugs, deciding she's fine with how things are. Megumi glances at the art club president, resting her chin on her hand, lost in thought. Her eyes narrow slightly, looking almost suspicious. She notices Kirishima focusing intensely, holding her pencil with precision. Megumi feels her curiosity piqued, wondering what the president is up to. Kirishima's face is flushed, her expression filled with excitement and intensity. She looks oddly happy, completely immersed in what she's doing. Megumi's unease grows. She glances at Kirishima, feeling something strange about the way she's drawing. Kirishima simply calls out to Ida, her tone mysterious. Ida casually says that he's drawing Megumi's thighs. Megumi freezes, her eyes going wide in shock as she repeats it in disbelief. The angle shifts to show Megumi sitting down, her thighs clearly in view. Ida focuses on sketching them while Megumi looks flustered, mumbling to herself. Kirishima smiles, almost sinisterly, clearly enjoying the situation. Megumi stands stiff, the awkward tension between all three of them evident. Ida is focused on his sketching, but the tension is palpable. The girl he's drawing starts sweating, and Megumi nervously thinks to herself, "Stop." She's clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She can't hold it any longer, and her frustration boils over. She shouts out loudly them to stop, startling both Ida and Kirishima. Kirishima, surprised by the sudden interruption, tilts her head as she approaches. The girl tries to explain, stumbling over her words, obviously flustered by something specific. Ida, still confused, asks what the issue is. Without warning, Kirishima steps in even closer, her face right up to the other girl's. The intensity is clear in her eyes, and her sudden closeness is overwhelming. The girl looks shocked, almost frozen by Kirishima's boldness. With an almost wicked grin, Kirishima claims they both are the same. Kirishima suddenly grabs Megumi, her expression confident and a bit intimidating. Megumi looks startled, her eyes wide with confusion. Kirishima leans in close, her smirk full of mischief. Megumi is visibly sweating, feeling cornered as Kirishima gets right in her face. Kirishima implies that she knows what Megumi feels, stating it confidently. Megumi looks flustered, stammering as she asks what Kirishima means by "we're the same." Kirishima smirks wider, revealing it's about Ida. Megumi's eyes widen in shock, completely taken aback by the revelation. Kirishima pushes Megumi down, pinning her firmly. She accuses Megumi of not being able to stand seeing her being sketched by Ida. Kirishima knows how much Megumi enjoys it, and she's calling her out on it. Ida continues drawing, seemingly oblivious to the tension. The way he focuses on her, his gaze as he sketches, everything about it makes her heart race. Megumi tries to resist, her face distressed as she tells Kirishima to stop, but Kirishima just gets closer, taunting her about how amazing Ida's sketching is, completely disregarding Megumi's discomfort. Kirishima inches even closer, daring Megumi to deny it. Megumi looks downward, unable to say anything in her defense, almost as if she's accepting what Kirishima says. Megumi, with a resigned look, realizes Kirishima figured it out. She wonders if Kirishima might be right, that she's drawn to Eda in a way that she didn't want to admit. Kirishima, with her usual teasing demeanor, tells Megumi that she's a pervert too, enjoying Ida's attention just as much. Megumi is visibly overwhelmed, her face flushed and lost for words. Kirishima is puzzled, wondering if Megumi is in love. Kirishima looks a bit uncertain as she questions Megumi, trying to confirm if they're alike. Megumi is visibly flustered, stammering in response. Kirishima, in her usual blunt way, tells Megumi that there's nothing to be embarrassed about, but Megumi completely freaks out, denying being a pervert, her face all red. Kirishima insists they're the same, even calling them fellow perverts for understanding the joy of being sketched by Ida. Megumi is just exasperated, shouting her denial. Kirishima softens for a moment, admitting that it took her a while to come to terms with her feelings too. Megumi seems confused and a bit overwhelmed by this unexpected honesty. Kirishima explains that she thought she might have been in love with Ada, especially when her heart raced whenever he sketched her. She gets lost in thought, clearly confessing something big here. Turns out Kirishima even modeled for other art classes to try to understand herself better. She's narrating her journey while Megumi listens, looking a little lost. Kirishima starts to express how good being sketched makes her feel, and she's clearly getting too into it. Megumi, meanwhile, just sighs in disbelief, thinking to herself how much of a pervert Kirishima really is. Megumi tries to argue that she doesn't feel the same, but Kirishima isn't buying it. She corners Megumi, pressing her for the truth. It's obvious Megumi is struggling to keep her composure. Megumi is fully flustered, spirals in her eyes, trying to deny what Kirishima is accusing her of. Kirishima keeps pushing her to admit why it makes her so excited. It's all too much for Megumi. Megumi, clearly flustered, tries to deny whatever assumption the others are making. Meanwhile, Ida is casually drawing, and someone in the background asks if Ida's done chatting. Kirishima and Eda stand by the window. Kirishima looks at Eda, and there's a sense of tension in the air, but Ida stays focused on his sketch. Kirishima becomes increasingly nervous, panting as she stares at Ida, who is drawing without noticing her reaction. She's struggling to keep her emotions in check. Kirishima is visibly sweating, trying to remain composed while Ida continues with his drawing. Eda mentions that Megumi is late, and Kirishima awkwardly agrees. Megumi is crouched down, sighing deeply. A kid is playing in the background, unaware of her struggles. Kirishima reacts in shock when Ida points out that Megumi hasn't shown up since Ida joined the club. It hits her hard. Kirishima bows dramatically, apologizing to Megumi, even though she isn't there. Ida is quietly focused on his sketch. Megumi thinks to herself about how she's been avoiding the art club for a week. She feels guilty and wonders if Ida is mad at her. Megumi looks conflicted. Her face is filled with uncertainty. The speech bubble with dots just shows her awkward silence, like she's processing something heavy. Kirishima is questioning Megumi with a determined look, asking why Megumi gets excited. Megumi just looks down, visibly embarrassed, clearly avoiding eye contact. Megumi is struggling internally, her thoughts all jumbled. She mutters, "It's not like I really," as if she's trying to figure out her feelings. Megumi looks surprised, her eyes widening as she whispers, "Huh?" She's confused by something unexpected happening. Megumi sees a kid sketching nearby and looks shocked, her eyes widening as she turns towards them. The kid seems totally absorbed in their sketching. Megumi approaches the kid, asking what they're up to. The kid cheerfully responds, saying they're drawing her. Megumi seems taken aback by the directness. The kid says Megumi is really pretty, and she gets all flustered, trying to thank them but clearly not used to such compliments. Her awkward body language says it all. The kid keeps on sketching enthusiastically, almost oblivious to Megumi's nervousness. Megumi sits there, still unsure of how to respond, just watching. Megumi watches the kid draw, looking sort of impressed. She thinks about how focused and passionate kids can get about the things they love. Megumi smiles a little, her expression softening as she thinks about Ida, noting how he's like that too when he's focused on sketching, completely in his own world, just like the kid. Megumi is crouched, looking kind of confused. She's thinking to herself, trying to understand what she's feeling. She's not feeling the excitement she thought she would. It's just nothing. Megumi is still trying to make sense of it. When Eda sketches her, she feels something different. Not excitement, but something else, something calmer. Eda is staring at her, and Megumi is clearly startled, letting out a surprised expression, her eyes wide open. Megumi's frustrated, wondering why Ida wants to borrow her for a moment. Meanwhile, the kid happily gets praise for her drawing. Ida confidently states it's his turn to draw Megumi now. He calls her his model, which makes her a bit flustered. Ida grabs Megumi's hand, dragging her away from the little kid who's waving goodbye to them. Megumi's taken by surprise, stumbling slightly. Megumi's sitting on a funny-looking sculpture, while someone nearby sketches away. It's clear she's just going along with it at this point, looking mildly annoyed. Ida's sitting at a distance, still sketching. Megumi watches him with a mix of curiosity and confusion, wondering what's going on in his head. Megumi finally speaks up. She calls out to Ida, clearly unsure of what he's doing. She questions if he really needs to draw her here in such a random place. The awkwardness is palpable as they sit there in the open area. Megumi is staring at Ida, looking somewhat uneasy while he continues sketching her. She doesn't seem thrilled with his attitude. Megumi is thinking about how Ida's behavior hasn't changed. He's still as pushy as ever, even though they haven't seen each other in a while. Ida moves closer, continuing to draw her, and Megumi can feel the warmth of his pencil strokes. She's flustered, overwhelmed by the closeness. Megumi sits by herself, still flustered. She reflects on how different it feels compared to when the little girl was drawing her. It's weird but also intense. Eda continues sketching, and Megumi can't help but feel there's something special about the way he draws her, something she can't quite put into words. Megumi thinks about Ida coming all this way just to sketch her, even if it was just for his art. It makes her feel conflicted, a bit touched, but still unsure. Eda finally speaks up, asking if Megumi has lost some weight. Megumi's expression shifts into a deadpan stare, not too pleased with the comment. Ida keeps talking, saying that her absence must have been because she was ill, which is why she hasn't been to the club. He mentions he was looking forward to drawing her plumper. Megumi looks stunned and confused. Ida tells Megumi she's his model and that she needs to keep that in mind. Megumi doesn't look too happy about the declaration, but seems to accept it. Megumi, in her thoughts, feels silly for having worried about Ida. He's acting completely normal, oblivious to her concerns. She's annoyed at herself for being an idiot for worrying. Ida is focused on his sketchbook while Megumi watches him. She knows how single-minded Ida can be. Megumi stands there, looking somewhat resigned. She thinks to herself that Ida is only interested in continuing to draw her, probably not considering how awkward it feels for her. Megumi makes a face almost as if she's trying to convince herself to stay calm, but clearly feeling conflicted inside. Megumi continues her inner monologue, feeling a bit frustrated. She thinks about how trying to make sense of Ida's intentions is pointless and won't change anything anyway. Suddenly, Kirishima appears out of nowhere, rushing towards Megumi while calling her name. Megumi is startled and lets out a loud scream in surprise. Kirishima goes into an apology rant, admitting that it's her fault Megumi hasn't been coming to the club. She thought she found another pervert like me and got carried away with plans for their club activities. Megumi finally gives in, telling Kirishima to calm down and promising to return. Kirishima is relentless, still begging her to come back, and Megumi looks exasperated. Eda watches all this unfold with a relaxed expression, while Megumi yells at him, telling him to do something and get Kirishima off her. Eda just responds calmly. Megumi enters a room, spotting Eda there. She calls out, "Hey there," trying to regain her composure. Eda looks up, surprised, seemingly unaware of what's happening. Megumi stands there, looking a bit flustered, crossing her arms. She's visibly confused about Ida going quiet all of a sudden. Eda finally breaks the silence, complimenting Megumi's summer uniform. She seems surprised and a little shy, but she thanks him. Kirishima chimes in with her usual teasing, agreeing with Ida, but in an over-the-top sarcastic way. Megumi's clearly not amused, looking uncomfortable. Kirishima gets even more carried away, talking about the breeze and the heat, and even suggests that running around in the nude might be better. Megumi is horrified and quickly dismisses the idea. Kirishima continues to praise the summer uniform, saying they feel great, while Megumi's face turns red, unsure of how to respond. Kirishima is still mumbling about exhibitionism, while Megumi tries to change the subject by asking Ida what he plans to draw today. Kirishima enthusiastically suggests drawing Lady Godiva, and Megumi just looks confused by the suggestion. Lady Godiva painting appears, illustrating Kirishima's idea. It depicts the Countess riding naked through Coventry for her people. Kirishima explains that Lady Godiva's husband promised to drop heavy taxes if she did it, which shocks Megumi, especially hearing how her husband made her do it. Megumi imagines Lady Godiva riding through town, and she's taken aback at the idea of the townspeople shutting themselves in out of respect. Kirishima looks at Megumi, seeming a bit hesitant. She says she's always thought that way. Megumi doesn't seem impressed by Kirishima's imagination running wild about the Lady Godiva legend. She tells Kirishima to stop turning a historical tale into something perverted. Meanwhile, Kirishima keeps talking about how Lady Godiva would probably want to be seen, hinting at her fantasies. Megumi is clearly not interested in getting naked, looking embarrassed as she speaks up. Ida suggests that his drawing subject might not have the same effect if it involves a model wearing clothes, which doesn't really help Megumi's situation. Kirishima enthusiastically volunteers herself for the model, causing Megumi to react in surprise and confusion. Megumi reluctantly gives in, quickly telling Kirishima to stop stripping. Kirishima seems overly excited about getting started right away. Kirishima tries to convince Megumi about going nude, but Megumi hesitates. Kirishima points out that she doesn't actually want to do it, and Megumi reluctantly agrees. Megumi eventually comes up with a compromise, saying she could wear a bit less. Kirishima seems to get an idea, which immediately makes Megumi uneasy. Megumi appears in a white school swimsuit, looking extremely uncomfortable. The text notes that the swimsuit was borrowed from Kirishima. Ida and Kirishima cheer Megumi on, saying how well the swimsuit suits her. Megumi is clearly embarrassed and yells at them to stop making such comments. Megumi angrily questions Kirishima about why she even brought the swimsuit to school. Kirishima, clearly amused, is just happy she did, finding the whole thing hilarious. Megumi's clearly annoyed but decides to get it over with, shouting that they should just start. Kirishima and Ida follow her lead, looking ready. Kirishima cheerfully decides she'll be the horse, suggesting she could be a fine filly, much to Megumi's surprise. Megumi is reluctantly riding Kirishima, who's literally playing the role of a horse. Kirishima announces herself with an enthusiastic "Ta-da!" while Megumi looks very unenthused. Ida is sitting and watching them, getting ready to draw. Megumi, with disbelief in her eyes, wonders how the situation has turned into this absurdity. Megumi is trying to stay composed while riding Kirishima. She can't help comparing herself to Lady Godiva, except that she isn't fully naked, but it still feels awkward having Ida staring at her. She reflects more on her discomfort, feeling as if Ida's gaze is tracing every line of her body, making her more self-conscious in her outfit. Megumi's thoughts are still on how out of place she feels. She's the only one in a swimsuit, while Kirishima and Ida are comfortably in their uniforms, which makes the situation even more embarrassing for her. A close-up of Megumi's face shows her struggling to keep it together, her eyes closed, clearly trying to manage her emotions. Megumi seems to notice something strange, her face filled with a mix of confusion and surprise. Kirishima looks flustered, mumbling something about feeling warmth and wetness on her back. Megumi questions Kirishima, asking what she's getting aroused for, clearly embarrassed by Kirishima's reactions. Megumi, completely fed up, yells at Kirishima to shut up while giving her a hard kick. Kirishima responds in her typical goofy manner, loudly neighing like a horse, while Megumi watches in frustration. Megumi demands that Kirishima stop what she's doing, clearly exasperated. Kirishima keeps pretending to be a horse, much to Megumi's disbelief. Kirishima dashes through a group of people, still in her horse act, while Megumi chases after her, trying to get her to stop. The crowd watches on, confused by the strange scene. They comment about the creepy horseplay and wonder if Kirishima is wearing a school swimsuit. Megumi and Kirishima have now become legends at the school for their bizarre antics, with Megumi having to deal with the aftermath. Kirishima, however, seems oddly content. A cute cat is meowing sweetly. Finally, something cute is happening in this hell. Megumi and another girl notice the cat, both of them surprised. It's a stark change from their earlier antics. Megumi softens at the sight of the cat, finding it adorable. The other girl teases Megumi for going soft, which Megumi takes in stride. Megumi insists she's always loved animals and gently strokes the cat as if to prove her point. Megumi is resting her head on the cat, holding it tight. She's talking about how she really needed something soothing to calm herself down and take a rest from the mad painter and that perverted demon. Megumi seems annoyed while talking to the cat. She's frustrated about the situation, saying it's unfair that she's supposed to fight one-on-one, but things have gotten complicated. She promises the cat she'll deal with it. Megumi suddenly shouts out in the art room. She's declaring to Ida and Kirishima that she wants to settle things once and for all. She's in full fighting spirit, challenging them both loudly. Ida is confused, asking where Kirishima is. Megumi looks a bit lost herself, mentioning that Kirishima isn't coming today because she has something else to do. Megumi, not feeling as enthusiastic without Kirishima around, mutters, "So it's just Ida today." Her fighting spirit is visibly gone. The room looks emptier with just Ida and Megumi. She takes a seat and Ida sets up his easel, seemingly preparing to draw her. Ida is focused on sketching while Megumi just sits there silently, unsure of what to say. The atmosphere is a bit awkward. Megumi watches Ida work. She thinks about how weird it is that it's just the two of them. It's quiet and the empty room adds to the awkwardness. Ida continues drawing and Megumi reflects on how it feels like it's been a long time since it was just the two of them. There's a lingering sense of nostalgia between them. Megumi, feeling conflicted, wonders why she's getting nostalgic over this. She seems annoyed at herself, almost like she's a bit happy about this time alone with Ida, even though she's reluctant to admit it. Megumi looks hesitant, like she's gathering her thoughts. She's about to say something, looking unsure. Ida breaks the silence and comments on how it's been a while since it was just the two of them. Megumi listens, looking a bit surprised by his words. Megumi seems flustered, struggling to hide her feelings. She shifts between looking embarrassed and trying to look composed. Megumi awkwardly tries to brush off the conversation, forcing a smile. Ida simply acknowledges her response. Megumi turns away, clearly frustrated with Ida's bluntness. It's obvious she's having a hard time handling her emotions. Megumi is sitting, trying to appear casual while Ida continues drawing. She reflects on how exhausting things have been lately and admits that it's nice to just take a break. The wind blows gently and Megumi finds it relaxing. She notices how even the sound of Ida's sketching makes her feel at ease. Megumi lets her mind wander, enjoying the moment. She compares the soft pencil strokes to someone gently stroking her, feeling at peace. Megumi ends up leaning against Ida's lap, completely relaxed, feeling almost like a cat curled up comfortably. Ida, noticing Megumi's relaxed state, seems a bit confused, while Megumi looks startled, clearly not expecting his reaction. Megumi wakes up lying on Ida's lap. Ida casually says good morning, as if nothing's unusual. Megumi freaks out, questioning why she ended up sleeping in his lap. Ida, staying calm, explains that she fell off her chair so he just let her sleep. Megumi awkwardly thanks Ida for his consideration. Ida, still with that chill expression, adds that she looked really tired so he figured she could use the rest. Megumi is taken aback when Ida also admits that he was examining her facial features closely while she slept. He says it was killing two birds with one stone. Megumi is mortified, thinking he just stared at her the whole time. Kirishima and Sayori peek into the room, spotting Megumi and Eda in this awkward position. Kirishima jokingly refers to the scene, saying it seems they've come at an inopportune time, teasing Megumi. Sayori also chimes in, just adding to the awkwardness. Eda comments that Megumi has gotten terribly soft lately, likening her to a bear cub. Megumi's face darkens in pure anger, and of course, Kirishima definitely earned another beating for that. Kirishima starts by showing Megumi a famous painting, Francisco Goya's La Maja Vestida. She's pretty straight with Megumi, asking if she can spot any differences between two pictures. Megumi looks confused and wonders why this sudden art quiz is happening. Kirishima holds up the two paintings, and Ida is also helping with the display. Kirishima insists on whether Megumi can see it. Megumi, studying the paintings, admits she can only really see one obvious difference. Kirishima gets excited, pointing out that Megumi is correct. The difference is that one of the subjects is clothed and the other one is not. Kirishima continues the explanation. Both paintings are of the same person, drawn in exactly the same way, but one has the person clothed and the other nude. She gets pretty into explaining this, lying across a table while Ida is chilling on the floor. Kirishima follows up with another question. Why did Goya paint both versions? Megumi looks totally lost, just managing a confused, huh? Megumi says she has no clue, to which Kirishima dramatically declares that Megumi's answer is correct. Megumi is baffled and wonders why Kirishima is so hyped up about this. Kirishima gives a little theory. Maybe Goya painted the clothed version to hide the fact that it was based on a nude figure, because painting nudes was kind of frowned upon back then. But in truth, no one really knows the answer. Eda chimes in, saying it's still a mystery to this day. Megumi nods along, looking like she's finally following the conversation. The three of them are now looking at the two paintings displayed side by side. Megumi comments that it's kind of fun to look at them like this, even if they might never understand the real story behind them. She seems to accept it. Eda's imagination runs wild as he wonders about the secret story behind Goya's paintings. Megumi just finds it weird, commenting on his odd imagination. Kirishima gets excited as she explains how placing the clothed and nude versions next to each other makes them much more suggestive. Megumi is unimpressed, saying she expected this kind of reaction. Kirishima compares the effect to a nude filter edit, trying to make it sound modern. Megumi is just bewildered at her knowledge of such things, questioning her innocence. Kirishima announces her plan. Today, she and Ida will both draw Megumi. Megumi looks surprised at the idea of both of them sketching her. Kirishima and Ida lay out the plan. They'll sketch Megumi in the same pose and then compare their work. Megumi just sighs, deciding to go along with it. Megumi stands in the center while both Eda and Kirishima start sketching her. She's not really thrilled, but she's cooperating. Kirishima and Eda focus intently on their sketches. Kirishima seems cheerful about it, humming a bit. Megumi watches them as they work. She looks a bit uneasy, seeing how absorbed both Kirishima and Eda are. Megumi thinks to herself how not only is Ida drawing her, but now Kirishima too. It's like they're competing. Megumi's internal monologue continues as she feels the intensity of being observed from both sides. It's definitely an awkward moment for her. Kirishima and Ida proudly hold up their sketches of Megumi, announcing, 3! Both pictures are identical, and Megumi seems startled, exclaiming that they're exactly the same. Megumi looks shocked and confused. She yells, asking why she's drawn nude in both pictures, clearly bewildered about how this is related to the Goya discussion. Kirishima is amused, casually agreeing. Megumi argues, insisting that the sketches can't be compared now. Kirishima disagrees, claiming they can be compared quite easily. Megumi's face shows a mix of embarrassment and annoyance. Kirishima says she knew she couldn't compete, mentioning how the bond between Megumi and Eda is just too deep. She looks amused, while Megumi and Eda are taken aback by her comment. Megumi is confused by Kirishima's comment and asks what she means. Kirishima simply responds that it's clear, implying some kind of deeper connection between Megumi and Ida. Kirishima further explains that when Ida draws Megumi, it feels like he is much closer to her than Kirishima could ever be. Ida stands there looking slightly confused. Eda admits to Megumi that he could never draw her the way he does now if not for their bond, which makes Megumi blush a bit. Kirishima is teasingly curious about the dynamic. Kirishima then tells Megumi to look at a specific part of the sketches. Megumi, visibly blushing, is a bit reluctant, but seems to agree. Kirishima is hyped up, saying she doesn't see much difference. Kirishima points out with enthusiasm at the sketch, focusing on a specific area. She says to observe these magnificent pubes, which makes Megumi extremely embarrassed. Kirishima is commenting about how she was looking at Megumi too objectively compared to Eda. She admits she didn't even think of drawing something as intimate as pubes, while Kirishima explains that the presence of pubic hair is what makes Goya's work more human. Megumi blushes as Kirishima compliments Ida's drawing, saying that he's made Megumi quite bushy. Ida adds that Kirishima tends to notice the most perverse details. Kirishima playfully responds, laughing and saying that she never misses a pube. Megumi looks flustered. Ida shouts in exasperation, asking if anyone is taking the art club seriously. Meanwhile, someone questions when they were ever not serious. A mosquito is flying around. I'm already getting annoyed, goddamn. Ida notices it and looks up, appearing to track the insect's movement. Ida tries to catch the mosquito with his hands, repeatedly clapping them together, but he's not having much luck. Megumi steps in confidently, announcing, "There!" She swiftly takes a shot at the mosquito with impressive precision. The mosquito is now crushed, proving Megumi's accuracy. Eda seems impressed and tells Megumi it was quite the hit. Megumi just sighs, noting how there have been lots of mosquitoes lately. Megumi is proudly clapping her hands after swatting the mosquito, boasting about her reflexes. Ida is impressed, saying, "Wow," clearly taken aback by her speed. Ida admits he's jealous of Megumi's quick reflexes, mentioning that it would help a lot with sketching moving bodies. Megumi sighs. With the mosquito out of the way, Eda asks if they can get back to work. Megumi agrees. Megumi resumes her pose on the table, while Ida continues sketching her. A close-up shows Megumi looking a bit tired as Ida sketches her, seemingly lost in his art. Another mosquito catches Megumi's attention. She follows it with her eyes, looking unimpressed. She snaps into action, her leg kicking out with all her strength, aiming for the mosquito. Megumi notices the mosquito flying towards the window, thinking to herself about taking it down in one go. Megumi prepares to strike, but Ida interrupts her, reminding her not to move while he's drawing. Ida seems annoyed at her movement, while Megumi gives a casual apology, not too bothered. Another mosquito approaches, and Megumi's glare shows she's ready for another round. She's not letting this one get away either. Megumi's lying on her back, frustrated. She thinks to herself how this situation is really bad, being completely defenseless like this with the mosquito right there. Megumi feels a moment of triumph as she catches the mosquito, determined to keep her focus. But then, Megumi realizes that more mosquitoes have come. They're talking to each other, planning to eat. She's freaked out. It's like reinforcements have arrived. She thinks about how these pests are usually so weak, but now that she's unable to move, she's feeling stuck. Megumi's sitting there, thinking about how cowardly these mosquitoes are for taking advantage of her defenseless state. A couple of them are buzzing close to her. Ada is sketching nearby, completely observing what's going on. Megumi can't believe he's just watching without helping her. A mosquito approaches her thigh, cheekily saying, "Excuse me." Megumi's horrified, feeling desperate. Now it's like there are multiple Idas sketching Megumi all around her. She refuses to let them have their way. She can't lose to them. Later, Ida hands her some ointment. Megumi scratches furiously, yelling about how itchy she is. Ida, ever calm, suggests that the ointment should help with that. Ada points out how Megumi gets oddly meek when he tells her to do something. Megumi realizes just how bad the mosquito bites are. She grumbles about them biting her everywhere, making it hard to apply the ointment in some places. Ada offers to help Megumi apply the ointment to those hard-to-reach spots. She panics and vehemently refuses, telling him she's fine. Kirishima enters the scene, holding 2 bottles of ointment, looking quite confident. Kirishima, with a playful grin, offers her help to Megumi instead. Megumi looks alarmed as Kirishima seems to enjoy the moment. Despite Megumi's protests, Kirishima eagerly helps apply the ointment, much to Megumi's horror. The scene humorously suggests Megumi got creamed all over as Kirishima insists on taking care of the bug bites.